Leif Garrett was earning millions every year before filing for bankruptcy, relying on just a $1,000 monthly allowance from his mother. And then there's Judy Garland. When she passed, the beloved star didn't even have enough money for a single meal. However, let's begin by talking about Nicolas Cage, who went from buying castle in Europe to almost declaring bankruptcy. Nicolas Cage, one of Hollywood's most fascinating figures, has led a career as dramatic off-screen as it is on. With a famous family name and undeniable talent, Cage earned an Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas and a nomination for adaptation. Yet, despite his wealth and acclaim, his headline-grabbing spending habits and financial struggles have added another layer to his intriguing story. A devoted Superman fan, Cage once shelled out $150,000 for a rare copy of Action Comics #1. His purchases didn't stop there. He famously spent $276,000 on a dinosaur skull and owned a collection of extravagant real estate, including castles in Europe. But Cage's lavish lifestyle eventually caught up with him, resulting in a $6.3 million tax lien from the IRS. Forced to sell off his prized comic book and surrender the dinosaur skull, he walked away with far less than he had invested. Reflecting on his financial troubles, particularly his missteps in real estate, Cage told the New York Times, "It's no secret that mistakes have been made in my past that I've had to try to correct. Financial mistakes happened with the real estate implosion that occurred, in which the lion's share of everything I had earned was pretty much eradicated. But one thing I wasn't going to do was file for bankruptcy. I had this pride thing where I wanted to work my way through anything, which was both good and bad." To climb out of debt, Cage took on an intense workload, starring in 20 films between 2017 and 2019. But while Cage did try to get his career back, Leif Garrett hit rock bottom so bad, his only source of income was his mother. Leif Garrett was the Justin Bieber of his time, a teen idol who had young fans swooning and his face splashed across magazine covers. He lived a fast-paced rock and roll lifestyle that only added to the public's fascination. Garrett's rise to fame was nothing short of meteoric. By 17, he was wealthy enough to buy his own home. He started in acting, then pivoted to music, delivering hits like Surfin' USA and I Was Made for Dancing. In the 1980s, he made a return to acting, even scoring a role in Francis Ford Coppola's The Outsiders. But behind the scenes, his wild lifestyle, fueled by substances and booze, was starting to take its toll. The 80s might have been the peak of his career, but they were also the beginning of his struggles. As Garrett transitioned into adulthood, he battled to keep his fame. A serious substance addiction and a devastating car accident, caused by Garrett driving under the influence, left his friend paralyzed and derailed his life. His friend later won a $7 million lawsuit against him, adding to his woes. By 1999, Garrett hit rock bottom when he was arrested trying to buy substances. 2 years later, he filed for bankruptcy, revealing that his only income was a $1,000 monthly allowance from his mother. Deeply in debt, he owed over $76,000 to creditors. Garrett's fame couldn't last, but what if the fortune you worked for disappeared before you could even enjoy it? Enter Gary Coleman. Gary Coleman, the beloved child star of Different Strokes, captured hearts in the late 1970s with his wit, charm, and unforgettable catchphrase, "What you talking about, Willis?" But behind the laughs and applause was a life that took a much more difficult turn after the cameras stopped rolling. When Coleman turned 18, he finally gained access to the trust fund that was meant to safeguard the millions he earned as a child actor. Unfortunately, what should have been a fortune had been mismanaged, leaving only a fraction of the expected $18 million. Feeling betrayed, Coleman sued his parents and his business representative, eventually winning the case. However, the settlement was just $3.8 million, a fraction of what he was owed and not enough to secure his financial future. The legal victory didn't end Coleman's struggles. He took on odd jobs to make ends meet, including working as a security guard. Even this was short-lived, as he lost the job following a confrontation with an autograph seeker. By 1999, Coleman's financial troubles culminated in him filing for bankruptcy. When he passed away in 2010 at just 42 years old, his will poignantly reflected his feelings about those closest to him. As reported by TMZ, Coleman requested, "I want a wake for me conducted by those who have had no financial ties to me and can look each other in the eyes and say they really cared personally for Gary Coleman." Next up, we have Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney's life was nothing short of a Hollywood drama, a mix of glitz, glamour, and heartbreak. Rising to stardom at just 19, Rooney dazzled audiences alongside icons like Judy Garland and earned 4 Academy Award nominations. By the time he was 40, he had amassed an astonishing $12 million. But behind the bright lights, his story was riddled with turbulence. Rooney's love life was infamous, 8 marriages in total, and his gambling habits were equally legendary. He blew vast sums on horse racing, a vice that followed him well into his 80s. At the peak of his career in Las Vegas during the 1950s and 60s, he was raking in $20,000 a week, only to gamble away twice that in the casinos. By 1962, the cracks in his glamorous facade were impossible to ignore. Filing for bankruptcy, Rooney owed $500,000 to creditors, including alimony for 3 of his ex-wives. His once impressive fortune had dwindled to just $500 in assets. The pattern repeated in 1996 when he declared bankruptcy again, this time drowning in $1.75 million in unpaid taxes. Even in his later years, Rooney was tirelessly performing live shows just to stay afloat financially. But the darkest chapter came in his final years. Rooney reportedly endured physical and financial abuse at the hands of his 8th wife and stepson. His stepson allegedly embezzled $8.5 million of Rooney's dwindling fortune. When the curtain finally closed on Rooney's life in 2014, the Hollywood legend, who had once lived so large, was worth a mere $18,000. And yet, even that was more than Judy Garland had. When she passed, the beloved star didn't even have enough money to buy herself a single meal. Judy Garland's life was a tale of dazzling highs and heartbreaking lows. From the moment she stepped onto the screen as a child star, she captured hearts worldwide. Her role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz turned her into an icon, and she continued to enchant audiences in films like A Star is Born and Judgment at Nuremberg. In her prime, Judy was a powerhouse, earning millions between 1961 and 1966 through sold-out concerts and her hit TV show, The Judy Garland Show. According to her 3rd husband, Sid Luft, her income during these years was staggering, between $12 and $15 million. But even at the height of her success, financial troubles loomed large. No matter how much she worked, no matter how many concerts she performed or television shows she did, Luft wrote, she was always in debt. By 1966, Garland owed $400,000 to the government and over $100,000 to other creditors. The IRS moved in, forcing the sale of her home and seizing her earnings from Capitol Records. Luft recounted a heartbreaking moment when Garland called him in tears, confessing, "I'm broke." She didn't even have enough money to buy food. To keep afloat, she pushed herself through punishing theater tours. Despite her extraordinary talent and hard work, her financial woes never eased. Tragically, Judy Garland passed away in 1969 at just 47 years old, still burdened by debt. The price of fame? For Judy Garland, it was financial ruin. For Gary Busey, it was something even more shocking. Gary Busey was once one of Hollywood's rising stars, earning an Oscar nomination for his electrifying performance in the Buddy Holly story. But in 1988, everything changed. A devastating motorcycle accident left him with a severe head injury, drastically altering his personality. While it's hard to say if this directly caused his financial troubles, it certainly didn't make life any easier. By 2012, Busey's finances were in shambles, and he filed for bankruptcy, drowning in over $500,000 of debt. His lawyer's statement to ABC News was anything but ordinary, comparing Busey's situation to corporate giants like General Motors and American Airlines. A bizarre way to frame his financial struggles, but somehow fitting for the eccentric star. The bankruptcy helped ease some of his burdens, but there was one creditor that refused to budge: the IRS. Busey owed over $450,000 in back taxes, a debt that lingered even after the proceedings. Despite clearing some of his debts, the shadow of his financial troubles was far from gone. And if you think Busey's tax troubles were bad, Burt Reynolds' taste for the high life landed him in the red. Over $3 million in debt. Burt Reynolds was the ultimate Hollywood heartthrob in the 70s and 80s, lighting up the big screen in classics like Smokey and the Bandit and Deliverance. But behind the charm and blockbuster success, Reynolds lived large, maybe too large. He poured millions into lavish properties, a fleet of horses, a private jet, and even 2 restaurant chains. Unfortunately, those ventures didn't pan out, leaving him with significant financial losses. His personal life was just as dramatic. Reynolds' divorce from actress Lonnie Anderson became tabloid fodder, turning into a bitter and expensive legal war. Millions were spent on attorney fees, and Anderson later accused him of failing to pay child support for their son. The fallout dragged on for years, with Reynolds finally settling his debts to Anderson in 2015. And then there was the CBS loan. In 1996, the network demanded Reynolds pay back $3.7 million. Overwhelmed by mounting debt, he finally filed for bankruptcy, a move his lawyer had been urging for years. "I've been trying to get him to go Chapter 11 for 7 years," the lawyer told the Washington Post. "I've begged him, implored him, but he's from the old school that thinks if a person goes bankrupt, it means he is no better than the salesman who comes in and takes your money." Still, even in the face of financial turmoil, Reynolds kept his trademark wit. In a 2015 interview with Vanity Fair, he quipped, "I would have spent more money and had a lot more fun." Next up, we have Kim Basinger. Kim Basinger was riding high in the 90s, a bona fide Hollywood star thanks to hits like The Natural and Batman. With the world at her feet, she decided to dream big, really big. In 1989, she made a bold move, investing $20 million to buy most of the land in a small Georgia town called Brazelton. Her vision? To turn it into a glamorous tourist hotspot with recording studios and movie sets. It was ambitious and full of promise, but as you'll see, the reality was far less dazzling. At the same time, Basinger was juggling other high-profile projects, including a film called Boxing Helena. But things started to unravel. Disagreements with the producers escalated, and Basinger ultimately walked away from the project. Her lawyer, Howard Weitzman, later explained that Basinger felt misled and believed her creative input was being ignored. Her decision to quit Boxing Helena came with a hefty price. Mainline Pictures sued her for breach of contract, demanding $7.4 million. The lawsuit, paired with the financial collapse of her Brazelton dream, left Basinger in dire straits. By 1993, despite having a net worth of $5 million, she was forced to file for bankruptcy. But hey, filing for bankruptcy once is tough enough. Now imagine having to do it twice. Toni Braxton's rise to fame began as a member of the R&B group The Braxtons in the 1980s. But it was her solo career in the 1990s that turned her into a superstar. Her emotional ballad, Unbreak My Heart, became a sensation, ruling the charts for an impressive 11 weeks. Just as her star seemed unstoppable, life threw her a curveball. In 1998, only 2 years after her breakthrough, Braxton filed for bankruptcy. The situation was a storm of legal battles and personal challenges. 8 weeks before filing, she sued LaFace Records and Arista Records to end her recording contract, citing unfair terms. On top of that, Braxton candidly admitted to overspending. In a revealing 2020 interview, she confessed, "I love dishes and house things, so I kind of lost it a little bit on the houseware. That's what I indulged in." Despite the financial turmoil, Braxton refused to let setbacks define her. She pushed forward, releasing more music and exploring acting. But the road remained rocky. In 2008, health problems forced her to cancel a series of Las Vegas shows, a decision that dealt her finances another harsh blow. Once again, she found herself filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And if Tony's love for housewares surprised you, imagine going from an estimated net worth of $70 million to being $13 million in debt. Enters MC Hammer. MC Hammer was the king of hip-hop in the late 80s and early 90s, dropping iconic hits like You Can't Touch This and Too Legit to Quit. At the height of his fame, he wasn't just a music star, he was a cultural phenomenon. But behind the parachute pants and the catchy beats was a lifestyle that would eventually catch up with him. By 1991, Hammer was living the dream with an estimated net worth of $70 million and pulling in $30 million a year. His wealth wasn't just sitting in the bank, it was pouring into a jaw-dropping $30 million California mansion. This wasn't just any house, it was a palace. Marble floors, indoor and outdoor pools, cutting-edge technology. It was like something out of a movie. But the mansion was just the start. Hammer was all about living large. He owned horses, a fleet of luxury cars, and rolled with a massive entourage that reportedly cost him $500,000 a month to support. The spending was out of this world, but unfortunately, so was the bill. By 1996, the party was over. Hammer had to file for bankruptcy, drowning in $13 million of debt with only $1 million in assets. His creditors included everyone from the IRS to the California State Franchise Tax Board, bringing his once extravagant empire crashing down. Losing all your money to lavish spending is one thing, but losing it all over a fight? Now that's a whole new level of dumb, and that's where Zsa Zsa comes in. Zsa Zsa Gabor was the epitome of old Hollywood glamour, a woman whose name became synonymous with extravagance, charm, and scandal. While she dabbled in acting, it was her larger-than-life persona, her diamond-draped image, and her 9 marriages that truly kept her in the spotlight. She was the kind of star who turned heads everywhere she went and made headlines for everything, from her witty one-liners to her public outbursts, like the time she famously slapped a traffic cop and ended up in jail. But behind the glitz and charm, Gabor's life had its share of financial turmoil. The early 1990s recession hit her hard, significantly devaluing her prized California properties. Then, as if the universe wasn't done with her, she became entangled in Bernie Madoff's notorious Ponzi scheme, losing an estimated $7 to $10 million in the process. Some of her financial woes, however, were self-inflicted. Her long-standing feud with actress Elke Sommer erupted into a highly publicized scandal after Gabor insulted her in an interview. Sommer retaliated with a defamation lawsuit that resulted in a stunning $3.3 million judgment against Gabor. But Zsa Zsa, in her signature unapologetic style, refused to back down, declaring, "I'd rather see her starve to death than give her one single dollar." The legal battle drained her finances, leaving her no choice but to file for bankruptcy the following year. And then there's David Cassidy, who ended up losing his $1 million home after some very poor decisions. David Cassidy, the ultimate 1970s heartthrob, skyrocketed to fame as the star of The Partridge Family. Fans adored him, and the show's success made millions, just not for Cassidy. He claimed the studio cashed in on merchandise using his name and image, while he saw little of it. "I saw 15 grand. Now that's corrupt," he told Yahoo Entertainment. Despite the frustration, Cassidy became the first actor to renegotiate and get a share of the profits. "It's little in comparison to today," he explained, "but it was a lot then. I would have $80 million instead of $8 million now." Though he sold millions of records, Cassidy couldn't escape financial troubles. By 2015, he filed for bankruptcy, overwhelmed by debts totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. Extravagant spending didn't help. He poured money into a $2 million Florida mansion and even bought property in the Bahamas. Cassidy's lifestyle proved unsustainable. He was spending $15,000 more per month than he was earning. On top of that, his wife filed for divorce, adding to the stress. In a desperate attempt to pay off his debts, Cassidy was forced to auction off his home and other belongings. And speaking of losing homes, Stephen Baldwin didn't fare much better. He was in the same boat, and even selling his house couldn't cover the mountain of debt he was facing. Stephen Baldwin, one of the famous Baldwin brothers, was a rising star in the 90s, with notable roles in films like The Usual Suspects. But as time went on, his career didn't keep the same momentum. By the 2000s, Baldwin's life took a different turn, one that included appearances on reality TV shows like Fear Factor, a far cry from his Hollywood heyday. Behind the scenes, his financial troubles were mounting. In 2006, Baldwin stopped paying the mortgage on his New York home after struggling to sell it. When he filed for bankruptcy in 2009, the full extent of his struggles came to light. He owed a staggering $1.2 million on 2 mortgages, yet the home was worth just $1.1 million. On top of that, he had $1 million in unpaid taxes and $70,000 in credit card debt. For years, Baldwin managed to hold on to the house, but by 2017, a judge finally ordered its sale. Unfortunately, the financial issues didn't stop there. In 2013, he was ordered to pay $400,000 in back taxes after failing to file for 3 years, a sum that was later reduced to $300,000. And for the last name on our list, we have Jose Canseco. Jose Canseco, a legendary power hitter, seemed to have it all: fame, fortune, and a golden swing that could send baseball soaring into the stratosphere. During his prime, he signed a jaw-dropping $23.5 million contract with the Oakland A's and amassed a total of $45 million over his career. But Canseco's story took a shocking turn, proving that even immense wealth can slip through your fingers without careful management. After stepping away from Major League Baseball in 2006, Canseco tried to keep his love for the game alive by playing in independent leagues. Yet his post-career life soon spiraled into financial chaos. By 2012, he had filed for bankruptcy, reporting a staggering $1.7 million in debt and a mere $21,000 in assets. Canseco attributed his struggles to a perfect storm of divorces, family obligations, and what he described as government overreach. In a raw and honest column for Vice, Canseco pulled back the curtain on his financial troubles, delivering a sobering warning about the pitfalls of wealth. He confessed, "If you've got friends and family, the more money you make, the more you spend on them. So let's say you spend half your money on them and the rest on yourself and the cost of living. It may so happen that during all of that, you forget to pay your taxes. And then, all of a sudden, penalties and interest start to add up, and you're in a pool of quicksand from which you cannot escape." That's it for today. Appreciate you watching. If you liked it, hit that like button and make sure to subscribe for more.